Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you again for joining me tonight. This is Dr. Stephen Walker doing my twice a week mental health live stream where we take questions live and talk about different mental health topics in an effort to normalize conversations about mental health and mental illness. Why? Because no one talks about it. Nobody did, not nobody, but you know what I mean? We need to talk about it more and we need to be more engaged with it from the perspective of everyone has issues. We all need to work on our mental health. We all need to be working on our degree of mental illness because that's what we need in our culture more, is dealing with what's in our head. Because if you can see from the polarized world we're living in, something needs to happen, people. So tonight's topic is how to develop post-traumatic growth. You know, we all have heard about post-traumatic stress disorder and all of that, but tonight we're going to talk about post-traumatic growth. Hey, Kat, how are you? Jennifer, how are you? Penny, thanks for logging on. I want to give a quick programming note. We're going to have a very special guest on next week. It's either going to be Tuesday or Thursday, but I'll post a link to it. He's a psychiatrist, and his name is Dr. Khalid. And Dr. Khalid works for the Florida TMS clinic, Dr. Khalid Bawarshi. And I don't know if you guys know what TMS is, but TMS is a way to treat depression, endogenous depression, which means really deep-seated depression. And TMS stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation. And basically the idea there is they use focused magnetic radiation, not radiation, but magnetic fields to stimulate different nerve cells in the brain to help alleviate depression. So he's going to come on and we're going to talk about not only that, but we're going to talk about medication. We're going to talk about medication being combined with talk therapy and just see where it goes. So we're hoping to have you guys log on. Please, if you know anybody who this could help, please share it. But that should be a very interesting live stream because we have, again, licensed psychologists, licensed psychiatrists working with people, directly working so you can engage with us. Hey, Debbie, how are you? Thanks for logging on. So I'm going to do things a little different tonight and moving forward. Had a good suggestion I want to implement into the live stream is I'm going to talk for about 15 or 20 minutes first on the topic and then get to questions and comments and all that. So please post questions and comments. The reason we're doing this is we're just trying out a little different format where some of the feedback we're getting, and I always tell my patient clients, let me know how things are going. We check in every session. Hey, how are things going? How are things progressing? Please give me feedback. So some of the feedback I got was, I think you should focus a little bit more on the topic and then move to questions as opposed to taking questions and comments as they're coming in. So we'll give it a shot, see how that goes. And if not, we'll go back to the original format. All right. So let's talk a little bit about post-traumatic growth. Okay. Post-traumatic growth. Everyone's heard about post-traumatic stress disorder. What's post-traumatic stress disorder? If you look at trauma on a spectrum, and you guys have heard me talk about this, but I'm going to get into a few of the mechanics of how to develop more post-traumatic growth. So real quick, post-traumatic growth is on one end of look at trauma in terms of a spectrum. Okay. On one end of the spectrum is post-traumatic stress disorder. What is post-traumatic stress disorder? You've had some sort of traumatic experience. You can't get past it. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to deal with it. It plagues you. You have different symptoms like hypervigilance. You're very encumbered by the memories. You don't want to do anything that's triggering it. Your life is basically you just can't get over the trauma. Now I'm trying not to get too technical because I don't want people to check out because I'm talking too technical. But post-traumatic stress disorder is characterized by a lot of anxiety, depression, fear, negative symptoms associated with a particular trauma. Hey, Josie, how are you? Thanks for coming on from New Jersey. All right. That's what post-traumatic stress disorder is. Post-traumatic growth on the other end of the spectrum is you've grown from the trauma. You've used the trauma to grow. You've found a way to access the lessons embedded in that trauma in order to be a better person for yourself. You've learned to harness that trauma in a way that helps you grow. And you've seen people, there were some people who were in the Boston bombing who wrote books about it. One woman was interviewed who lost her leg, and she actually said it was the best thing that ever happened to her, believe it or not, because she was able to grow from it. Okay. So let's talk about how we move from post-traumatic stress disorder into post-traumatic growth. Now, remember, people, no one's going to be healed or cured from their PTSD or get into post-traumatic growth from one live stream. What I'm trying to do is show you guys that we don't need to be stuck in things that are affecting us. We don't need to be stuck in things that traumatized us in the past. Kat is one of our longtime viewers, and she has dissociative identity disorder. She had a lot of trauma in the past, and now she's trying to work on it by dealing with the fragmented personality. So again, remember, if you have a question or comment, please post it. Well, not post it, but please ask it so that we can I can get to him in a few minutes after I've given an idea of what post-traumatic growth is all about. So one of the hallmarks or one of the ways to deal with post-traumatic stress disorder is to accept that you've been traumatized, to not be ashamed that you've been traumatized. I was working with an individual today, and this person had been sexually abused when the person was a teenager, and it resulted in a whole bunch of guilt that she's been carrying around. Why? Because she hasn't dealt with it. So one of the ways that you go from post-traumatic stress disorder into post-traumatic growth is by accepting that I've been traumatized, that there's nothing wrong with me because I've been traumatized. People like to throw around the word, don't be a victim, don't be a victim. You'll never hear somebody, or you shouldn't hear somebody in the mental health field tell a trauma survivor, don't be a victim. Because what we know is that people get victimized, and telling them don't be a victim is another way of blaming the victim. Okay. So one of the things that starts the process over, gets the ball moving, gets things moving within the person, is saying to themselves, hey, I've been traumatized. I have these particular issues and I need to work on them. Okay. But the problem of why people stay in a lot of post-traumatic stress is because they're ashamed of how they feel. They're ashamed that they feel the way they feel. And again, guys, if you're watching this live, please share this. Remember, this is my attempt to normalize conversations about mental health and mental illness. We all have some degree of trauma. Everyone has a degree of trauma. Some are really low on the spectrum and some are pretty high on the spectrum. The main symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder is you hear somebody say, nope, I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even want to think about that. And anytime you can say, I don't even want to talk about that, I don't want to think about that, that's a sign that you have some sort of untreated emotional wound. Okay. So how do we move into post-traumatic growth? We begin looking at the trauma from a different perspective. Now, what does that mean? Once you begin talking about it and dealing with it, the trauma takes on a different feel to you. You're not as encumbered by the trauma the more you talk things out. Now, people may think, oh no, well, I don't want to be triggered by that trauma. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm talking about things that have negatively affected me. But let's think about that for a second. One of the hallmarks of post-traumatic stress disorder is avoidance. The person who has been traumatized avoids anything that reminds them of that. Now, the key to moving into post-traumatic growth is how you're exposed to those traumatic memories. And many of you have heard me use this example of the gentleman who was the American Sniper. There was a whole movie on the American Sniper and how he he was a soldier and he did all these missions in the Middle East and blah blah blah. But not blah blah blah. But I'm not going to go into his whole background. But he took a PTSD war veteran or war comrade of his to the shooting range to try to help him deal with his trauma. The problem with that is the guy got there and got flooded, meaning he was overexposed to it, which led him to then have a psychotic break and start shooting people and unfortunately This American hero was killed in that. Okay, so the second point to this is you've got to begin looking at the suppression of the memories of the trauma as what's keeping you stuck in post-traumatic stress disorder, the avoidance of it, the avoidance of dealing with those, of talking things out, of dealing with that, being therapeutically exposed to that, is why people get stuck in post-traumatic stress disorder. And they tell themselves, oh no, I can't handle that. I can't deal with that. And that self-statement, that self-talk keeps them locked in cycles and cycles of post-traumatic stress disorder. So moving along the spectrum, okay, moving along the spectrum of post-traumatic stress disorder to post-traumatic growth. Hey, Rose, how are you? I was telling people before, Rose, I know you've been a long-time viewer, but I'm going to do questions and comments a little bit later and just get to the meat of the topic, and then we can talk about whatever's on people's minds. Hey, Ali, how are you? So not telling yourself over and over you cannot deal with the trauma you've been through, so you got to tuck it away. That's keeping the post-traumatic stress disorder in place, that emotional wound. If you think about an emotional wound, I don't know if you guys remember, but I had this huge, blood blister on my hand. The one time in 4 years, I did something manual and I smashed my hand. So we know we're not manually gifted. But anyway, completely gone, healed. Why? Because healing's embedded in me. Healing is part of who I am. So now imagine if this wound got infected and I'm like, nope, don't want to deal with it. Nope, now my hand is turning all purple and you guys are like, Dr. Steve, what's going on there, dude? But I don't want to deal with it. Nope, nothing there. Now my arm comes on and you guys are like, dude, what the hell? I mean, you got to deal. On a psychological and emotional level is what people are doing with their trauma on a daily basis. They're ignoring it and they're not dealing with it, and it's infecting them. And the problem is, what keeps people from moving out of PTSD into post-traumatic growth are the messages they're hearing from people, well-intentioned people around them, and a lot of people online that are telling them, let it go, focus on the positive. Don't think about the negative. Oh, that's still bothering you? The fact that you were raped as a child, or you didn't get enough love, or you were bullied, that's still affecting you? This is why people stay in post-traumatic stress disorder at different levels. So the main thing that we need to do to move into post-traumatic growth is to deal with the trauma. We've got to look at the trauma as something that can be healed. But that's not the message we have. What's the message we have in our culture about pain? Kill the pain. Don't feel it, kill it. And we do this, I see this all the time in this field, all the time. People say, I can't, I don't want to deal with that. The key is you've got to work on the trauma. If you want to move into post-traumatic growth, and maybe if some of you have never even heard of it, type it into Google, read about it. Post-traumatic growth is when the trauma begins working for you, where you become in control of the traumatic event in your life. And people, well, now I shouldn't make a blanket statement, meaning I was just about to say, that's not going to happen unless you talk things out. Now, let me rephrase that. Depending on the severity of your trauma, you've got to talk it out of you. You've got to get into a situation where you're talking it out of you and you're dealing with how you're feeling. You're hearing yourself saying things. Why is that important? Well, remember what I talked about with the war veteran who overexposed his comrade. I hate comrade, but you know what I mean. The gentleman he was taken to the shooting range, he overexposed him. Therapeutic exposure. It's called exposure therapy. Okay, think of it like this. You've got a fear of snakes, okay, because people have a fear of their trauma. So, but you have a fear of your snake, of a snake or snakes, whatever. but you're going, I don't know, you're going to the Amazon, or you're going someplace where you have to be around snakes. Now, suppose you come into my office and you say, well, doc, I got this fear of snakes I got to work on. I say, okay, well, don't think about it. I don't want you to think about a snake. I don't want you to talk about snakes. In fact, dude, let it go. Just let it go. Let go of your fear of snakes. Come on. Let's focus on hippopotamuses. Okay? What's going to happen to you the minute a snake is around you? Exactly. You're going to have a traumatic response to that. Okay? That is exactly what we as clinicians, licensed clinicians, help people do. We slowly expose you to snakes. Now, do we just grab a snake from, my briefcase and throw it in your lap? Of course not. We start slowly. We start talking about it. So where'd you get this? What happened? What's going on with your fear of snakes? We start talking about it. Oh, okay, cool. We expose you slowly to what. Then we start visualizing snakes. Okay. Hey, I want you to visualize a snake. We do some deep breathing to help you deal with the anxiety. Then we may move into looking at pictures of snakes. Then we may look at videos of snakes. Then and I'm gauging your emotional response. And if you're going real quick, then we're going to move quick. If you're really having anxiety about it all, we're going to slow it down. Then we're going to potentially move into going to a pet store and looking at snakes, and then maybe eventually move into touching a snake and all that. But the key is the exposure therapy. Okay. Exposure therapy is what we use to help people move from post-traumatic stress disorder into post-traumatic growth. And one of the things that happens, I'm going to get to questions and comments. So start, if you have a particular question about this, or if something's on your mind or something's affecting you, you want some, just some vent time, start sending me some questions. Okay. One of the things about post-traumatic growth that happens is what's called reframing. Okay. People begin reframing their traumatic event as something that's helped them. Okay. Something that's helped them grow, something that's helped them achieve higher levels of self-awareness, higher levels of self-compassion, higher levels of personal growth that they've always wanted to move into. And this is what happens as you move into post-traumatic growth. Now, remember before, we were talking about things that keep us locked in post-traumatic stress disorder. In post-traumatic growth, remember I was talking about the lady who lost her leg and how she said it was the best thing that's ever happened to me? That's a symptom. That's a sign of post-traumatic growth. The person is actually looking at the traumatic event as something that helps them grow, something that they needed. And like I said, I was blown away. I was watching the interview with my wife, and she said, the interviewer asked her, well, would you want to go back and like not be at the marathon that day? And she said, no. Just amazing. And she talked about how she worked through it in therapy, how she worked through it and talked about it. So if you're encumbered by trauma, if you're still feel those emotional wounds inside of you, the key to it is accepting. Remember, we talk about the it's okay pill a lot. You guys hear me talking about the it's okay pill. It's okay how I feel. That's the first step. Making it okay that you're still being affected by the trauma. Why is that so important? Because most 9, if not 10 out of 10 people I begin working with who have been traumatized say to me, I hate it. I hate that this is still affecting me. I hate that I'm still being bothered by this. And then they start telling themselves it's my fault, or it shouldn't have happened. And they're blaming themselves and doing what we call victim bashing. You're the victim of a trauma, and now you're blaming yourself for that trauma. Okay. So those are some of the keys to moving into post-traumatic growth. I encourage everybody out there, remember, the reason for these live streams is not, you're not going to, I'm magically healed. It's just to start planting in people's minds that there are ways to deal with how you feel. Okay. You can deal with how you feel, but what do most of us do that keeps trauma locked in us? I can't handle this. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this. It's going to kill me. And that level of negative self-talk keeps people locked in these cycles. And is it a quick fix? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. You're not, and I've been saying this for years, and I posted memes about it. Thanks, Pam. I'm glad you're appreciating it. You're not going to snap out of it because you didn't snap into it, people. You got to take time to work on the pain with the exact level of whatever level of commitment or desire to work on a tooth pain or a knee pain or whatever it may be. Okay. Post-traumatic growth can be achieved by people who are actively working on their trauma. Okay. The key is working on it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the comments and questions now. So if you have questions about what we're talking about, if you've got something you're struggling with, I want to mention again that we really have a great guest coming on tomorrow, on Tuesday or Thursday. We got to lock it in because of our schedules. But we've got a great guest, Dr. Khalid Bawarshi. He's from the Florida TMS clinic in good old Florida. A TMS is transcranial magnetic stimulation, and that is a way to treat depression by magnetically stimulating different neurons and brain nerve cells in our brain in order to help with the depression. They're getting great results from it. But again, we're going to talk about medication. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. So please have your questions and comments ready. Okay. So let's get to some comments here. Remember, please ask me anything you want about post-traumatic growth. Please ask me anything about what you're going through. We're going through some incredibly crazy times with this pandemic, and politically, economically, people are losing jobs. We got this mental health crisis going on. People aren't talking about it. We are all going through like an elongating trauma. I'm curious. A lot of some of my colleagues and I discuss the downstream effects of this are going to be felt for a long time, and dealing with it. Hopefully, what I'm seeing happen in the field more is we're getting more calls. We're getting people who are actively trying to work on these issues. And it seems to me that the field is now moving into doing more telepsychology, teletherapy, which is wonderful because you can access people at any time of the day a lot of times, and you can work on your issues. So again, people, if you've been if there's something in your past that has traumatized you and you haven't worked on it, you got to work on it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You didn't ask to be traumatized. You didn't ask for something to cause you pain. You didn't ask anybody to say to you, oh, you know what? Or you didn't ask for somebody to put this trauma into you. So you're the victim of that trauma. Do I mean stay a victim? Of course not. But you've got to accept that you were victimized by somebody through no fault of your own a lot of times. This person I was working with today has spent years blaming themselves for the sexual molestation. Why? Because the person was underage, 15, 16 years old, older man, of course, groomed her slowly. And she spent the last years believing that it's her fault at any level. Victims of perpetrators do not allow themselves to be victimized, okay? You guys have heard me say this before. Victims of sexual abuse do not allow themselves to be victimized, okay? Perpetrators allow themselves to be victimizers. Perpetrators allow themselves to be perpetrators. It is 100% on that person who did it. 100%. I don't care if that 15 or 16-year-old individual was saying, please, I love you, please take me. It is still up to the older person to make the right decision and not take advantage of that child, because that child does not know what they're doing. They don't. Okay? So if you have some trauma that you have not worked on, please work on it. Please tell yourself tonight, if you're watching this live, or if you are catching this after I post it, please tell yourself, It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's okay that this is still bothering me. Not it's okay that I was traumatized and victimized. It's okay that this is still bothering me. Because when you tell yourself over and over, it's not okay, you're stuck in post-traumatic stress disorder, people. You're victimizing the victim. You're telling the victim. Imagine going to work at a sexual battery center, and you have a whole bunch of victims, and you say to each one of them, "It's your fault. It's your fault. You." And that's what people do. That's what people do to themselves all the time. I've seen it over and over and over. Okay, so let's get to some comments and questions here. Again, thank you for everyone who's logged on and catching this live. Please check out, I believe we're going to be doing the show with Dr. Khalid on Tuesday or Thursday. It's probably going to be Tuesday, but I'll post that. But please, he's a licensed psychiatrist. He works with patients every day. If you have questions about TMS, for depression or anything else, tell people about it so we can get a really good engagement going. So let's get to some questions here. Let's see. Kat saying, technically not Kat, but she's talked about you. I wanted to meet you. Okay, so it sounds like Kat is having an episode where one of her alters is taken over. So Kat, if you're there, or whoever this is, please let us know how you're doing. Please be nice to Kat. Kat's not your enemy. You guys need to all learn to work together. So Josie's saying, hey, Josie, I said from Jersey. Let's see. Rose is saying, wow, I feel like you've heard my thoughts. About an hour ago, I said to myself, I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm going to start putting these up so people can read them, because I think what we need to do is really just see that these are real people out there. So let's see here. Well, I can't read it and post it at the same time. So I wish I could do Thursday lives. It's been a while since I've logged on with you live, and this topic is so perfectly divine and in my PTSD recovery. Glad I checked in. Great. There are a lot of growing pains in letting go of those traumatic experiences and getting over it per se. Support from one in us forum to help grow and advise. Thank you again for all your advice and selfless help, Doc. You're welcome. Thanks, Rose. I appreciate the appreciation. I really do. No one's paying me to do this. I don't charge for it. I'm just doing what I can during this very difficult period for all of us to try to help support people and realize that there's nothing wrong with having issues. People, everyone has issues. Who do you know? Name one person who doesn't have issues. One person that you can think of that doesn't have issues. But Rose, what I would say to you is you gotta let go of wanting to let go of it, sister, of getting over it. You got to get into it. You got to keep getting into it. You got to absorb it. You've got to assimilate it into you. You can't say, I would advise you not to look at it as a process of getting over it or letting it go, because that implies that, well, imagine this, and this is an analogy I use with a lot of my patients. Imagine your goal of when you go to the gym is to let go of the weights, to get over them. How are those weights going to help you? The trauma, when worked correctly or worked through, can help you grow, can help you find new ways of dealing with trauma, can help grow your resilience. That takes time. But I get what you mean, Rose, when you say getting over it or letting it go, because sometimes it just it's like a cloud over us, and we just, I had a emergency room physician that when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I remember him saying, hey, doc, can I just excise this out of me? Wouldn't that be great? Like that movie with Jim Carrey, the what's it called? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where he was having a bad breakup. He was traumatized by a breakup, and there was a psychologist who had some machine that could extract the memories of his girlfriend, and the psychological chaos that caused. Can't be done, people. Can be healed, but it's a process of assimilation and integration. It's not a process of excising and stigmatizing and segregation and all of that. Okay. So great, Rose. Glad you logged on. Glad that you're finding support from this tonight. Beautiful. Ali, how you doing? Great that you're doing this. Great, Pam. Samantha saying we can overcome what has traumatized us. It takes time, but one by one, you can work through it. Life is not perfect and no one is. Absolutely. And you know, Pam hit on there's so many different topics associated with PTG. One of the things about perfectionism and how perfectionism embeds itself in trauma victims, because if you've been raised with some degree of perfectionism, then you are going to see those negative emotions and you're going to see this trauma as something imperfect. And then that's going to set off a whole bunch of things. But yes, absolutely. Perfectionism is another way to stay locked in post-traumatic stress disorder, is the idea that it's not okay that I'm imperfect. It's not okay that this is still affecting me. So thank you. Trisha is saying, good evening. My daughter and I have been participating in trauma treatment with EMDR. Beautiful. I'm trying to get an EMDR clinician on here to talk about EMDR, because there's a lot of interesting evidence coming out there. It's been a long process of healing, well worth the treatment and healing process towards growth. Trisha, if you're still on, can you follow up on that? What has worked for you? What do you recommend? Can you give us an idea? You know, I don't treat people in different techniques I'm not well trained in. So my experience with EMDR is limited. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but predominantly positive. So if you're still on, Trisha, tell us a little bit about that. What's a typical treatment protocol and how it's helping you? And that'd be great. Samantha's saying truth, no more victimization. Exactly. Don't victimize the victim, people. Don't victimize the victim, okay? Because that's exactly what a lot of people who are stuck in post-traumatic stress disorder do to themselves. They victimize the victim. They hate the victim. They talk badly. You're so pathetic. I hate that you're like this. Oh, you're damaged for life. No one's going to love you. And that's victimizing the victim. Okay. And that is one of the ways to stay locked in post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people aren't even aware of post-traumatic growth. People aren't even aware that that is a part of the process of healing, that you start in post-traumatic stress disorder and you can move into post-traumatic growth. And I encourage everyone out there to look up post-traumatic growth and start just filling your mind with healing possibilities, ways that you can heal. Okay. Jennifer's saying, I had therapy today and talked about a recent situation where someone recently used my trauma against me intentionally to hurt me because he felt hurt by me. It's been super difficult to not get into full-on trigger mode. Yep. My anxiety has been off the charts to the point where I've gotten physically ill over the situation. My therapist said I'm actually handling the situation well, but I feel like I could be doing better. So Jennifer, what I would ask you straight off the bat, sister, is where did you learn that you always have to handle the situation better, sister? You know, where did you learn that Jennifer's not allowed to mishandle situations based on a trauma that happened to her that she didn't ask for? You know, where did you learn that? Because I would say that Jennifer needs massive doses of that pill I always prescribe to people, the It's Okay pill. The It's Okay pill is Jennifer saying to herself tonight, it's okay that I haven't handled the situation great, or it's okay that I got triggered by this person. Going back to the person who used your trauma against you, you know, I don't want to be a sexist here, but I'm guessing it's a guy. I'm guessing it's a man. I'm guessing it's somebody who doesn't apologize. And I shouldn't make sexist comment like that because I'm a guy, but you know, I know how men can be, people. And, you know, I don't want to do any man bashing, but I think it's time to turn things over to women for a while and see how they handle the world, because men, we ain't doing that good of a job. But anyway, Jennifer, I would say that you need to have a talk with whoever used your trauma against you. Okay. And I shouldn't say that. I don't hate men. I mean, that would mean I hate myself, but I'm owning the fact that a lot of men are like Neanderthals, and we learned from we were raised by Neanderthals. So what do? We don't apologize. We don't own when we've hurt somebody. We don't do anything to soothe wounds we've caused. Why? Because men don't like to admit that they're wrong. Men don't like to admit that they need help. Men are not comfortable. Remember, we talked about anger being a secondary emotion. Remember, we talked about that? Anger is a secondary emotion, meaning that the primary emotion is pain. So what do? We repress that. Please share this if you're watching this. Please get some more people pulled into this conversation. If you're a man and you're watching this and you feel I said something out of line, challenge me, talk about it. I'm not here just for, hey, Diego, how you doing, buddy? I'm not here just to be a, typical talking head on the internet and just, I want feedback. I like feedback. Somebody posted the other day on the Facebook page that liberal or being a liberal is a mental disorder. And I said, what do you mean by that? Crickets. Defend your position, people. If you're gonna insult, millions of people on this planet, or if you feel conservatives is a mental disorder, defend it. But anyway, the point is, Jennifer, my ex-boyfriend, and my mother taught me to stuff. Yeah, well, how did I know it was a man? But anyway, and I doubt if he's your ex-boyfriend, if he's going to apologize or own it, because that's probably why he's your ex-boyfriend, right, Jennifer? I mean, so, men have been traumatized to degrees that a lot of women aren't even aware of, and we do not deal with it well. I've worked in multiple treatment facilities. I've worked in prisons. I've worked with some of the most beaten up, battered men. I've worked with violent offenders. I've done violent offender groups where you hear some of the trauma that this one kid who's a hardcore gangbanger, he talked about, broke down in the middle of session talking about how him and his younger brother were routinely beaten and sexually abused by the mother when the father left because she had no way to make money, so she started being a prostitute. And these guys, and it just, so what happened to him? He turned all that pain into anger, and he killed and gangbanged and did things that are reprehensible. I'm not excusing it or condoning it, but yeah, we need to work on it. And men are notorious for keeping our stuff in, and anger, and just, I'm not going to apologize. I have no apologies to make. So Jennifer, I'm glad that, you're moving on or getting, trying to find somebody that's a little bit more emotionally available for you. So let's see who else, questions or comments. Kat is saying, many of you who don't know, Kat has disorder. So it sounds like one of her alters is out tonight. She's saying, I am Amity. Hello. It's extremely nice to finally meet you. Great, Amity. Well, let's talk about it. How can we work on helping Kat? Kat's in charge, right? I mean, we have to work on helping her. So I'm glad you seem very friendly and personable. So maybe you can talk with Kat and help her deal with the trauma she's been through. Okay, because we have to be able to. Hey, Amity, if I could talk to Kat, that'd be great. So I want to check in with her and see how she's doing. Sam saying, welcome, Amity. We adore Kat. She's awesome. Great. Kat is saying, thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Debbie is saying, EMDR did not help me. So why not, Debbie? If you're still on, talk about that. If you can, give us some feedback, because I've heard mixed reviews about EMDR. Some people have sworn by it and some people think it's not very effective. But any treatment's going to have people who think it's effective and some people who don't. Okay, that's just part of what the treatment models are about. So sorry it wasn't effective for you, Debbie, but if there's something in there that you still need to work on, don't give up on that, okay? That's the main message I want people to hear from me every time I'm on. Do not give up on healing this trauma, okay? Remember, we're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder moving into post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Why don't I just say PTSD? PTSD is held in place by shame, by fear, by hatred, meaning I hate this trauma. And I'm not saying to love it, but as long as you're hating it, as long as you're hating what you went through, you're going to stay stuck in post-traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder. You're going to. So Debbie, if EMDR didn't help you, sister, don't give up on that process, please. Please. Jennifer, we got to your comment about your ex-boyfriend. And Jennifer, when you say my mom taught me to stuff, well, Jennifer, maybe it's time for Jennifer to teach herself how to not stuff. It's time for Jennifer to teach herself that I don't need to stuff this down anymore. I don't need to keep my feelings in. I'm not saying explode all over everybody, but talking about how you feel. I've got a 5-year-old. I'm working on him every day to talk about how he feels. Talk about what's going on. He's, it's so funny. The other day he was running into my office to say hello, and he stubbed his toe, and he's ow, but then he started immediately going, I can handle the pain. I can handle the pain. And he started talking himself out of getting overly triggered by the pain. And that's one of the things I'm trying to work with him on early on, not to be afraid of pain, that he can handle pain. And he didn't say it like he was a robot. He was just saying to himself, I can handle this. I can deal with the pain. I can deal. And I started crying. No, I didn't start crying, but I felt like, good, the message is getting through to him. And this is something I wish I had learned as a kid. I can tell you that, because nobody was telling little Stevie about how to deal with stuff that was going on with him. I had to do the work later in life. So Trisha, hey Trisha, how are you? Trisha saying, supporting my daughter in trauma treatment, great, resulting from a sexual abuse. And it's been hard process for me to not blame myself. Absolutely. I should have protected her. How could I have let this happen? Why didn't she say anything to me? What kind of mom I hear you, sister. You need to work on some of that guilt too. There you go. The enormous guilt I carried wasn't helping me or my daughter in healing. We continue to attend weekly treatment separately. For me, EMDR has helped me to gauge my feelings and not to blame myself. I am still attending therapy. Also, my daughter is participating in a medical cannabis program. Beautiful. Well, maybe we can talk to Dr. Khalid about what his views are on medical marijuana. He's a psychiatrist coming on next week, and we're going to be talking about TMS therapy and treatment. So yeah, that's great. But seriously, one of the things I would encourage you to look at, Trisha, relating to the guilt you feel is, you got to start getting into where you learn to guilt yourself so much. Now, what I mean by that is, it seems like, you're and I, as a parent, we never want to be, feel we're responsible for our kids being sexually abused. But I hope that whatever you're working on in your treatment is you talking about that guilt and having a realistic idea of what you could have done to protect her. You know what I mean? Because it sounds like you're working on it, and you're dealing with it from a position of, look, this happened. I could have different, but it didn't. Trisha, what I'd be curious about as I'm talking this out with you is, does your daughter blame you? Does she point the finger at you and say, oh, you're the reason why I got sexually abused? So I'll wait to hear what you say for that. But Trisha, you got to work on your relationship with Trisha. You got to work on how Trisha is relating to Trisha. Okay. So Debbie's following up and saying, okay, thank you. Yes, I think I've been stuck. Okay. Well, Debbie, it's time to say it's okay that I've been stuck. But it's time that I need to say, what's keeping me stuck? What's keeping me stuck? Is it pessimism? Another symptom of post-traumatic stress, PTSD? I'll never heal. I'll never get over this trauma. I'm broken for life. People don't realize how what we say to ourselves, what we say to the trauma, keeps the trauma locked in place. And remember, the only reason I'm on 2 nights a week is to normalize conversations like this, is to engage with people about their mental illness, because everyone has a degree of mental illness. Everybody has a degree of mental illness, but we're not talking about it. So yes, Debbie, time to get a little unstuck. Stuck sucks, it really does. We don't need to stay stuck. But believing we're going to stay stuck keeps us stuck. Okay. Trisha saying, also to add my treatment in EMDR, also take psychotropics. Beautiful. I'm not anti-medication. And we can talk to this with Dr. Khalid about medication and how it's prescribed. I just think it's overly prescribed. I just think it's a default, and it's given to people with the idea that they're going to be on it the rest of their life. And they believe the prescriber, and then they believe that they're going to need it the rest of their life. Combining medication with talk therapy, it's called best practice. That gets the best results, okay? Medication has its place. It's a painkiller. It's a pain reliever. You relieve the pain, you work on what's causing the pain, and then you jettison the cast. Imagine, I broke this arm when I was a kid, bone shot out, the whole 9 yards. Imagine if I still had that cast on my arm. This arm would be all shriveled up and, But that's what we're told. We're telling people, you're going to take this the rest of your life. All right. Keep working on it, Trisha. Debbie, keep working on it. You can heal. Okay, people. So Samantha's replying to Jennifer. Jennifer needs to love Jennifer. Yes, it's tough at first, but it can happen. Absolutely. Well, the first thing Jennifer needs to do is start liking Jennifer, and getting to know who Jennifer is. But absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Great. Jennifer saying, thank you. Kat saying, just an alert before I allow Kat out. She did have to testify today against him in court today for vaulting the restraining and protective order by attempting to contact her and use a third party to contact her. So she's a bit out of touch and go right now. Well, let's leave her be. But, I would just encourage you to tell Kat she did a great job. That's great to hear that Kat was able to testify against the person who committed the sexual abuse, who tried to contact her and triggered all of this again, dropped the boulder into the pond, stirred everything up for his own sake. So please tell her, great job testifying against him. Great job. It's great to hear. Diego's saying that shame has been a big part of my self-doubt and never self-fulfilling achievements. Beautiful. Basically, I can never be enough because of the shame of mistakes I've made in life and bullied by my parental figures. Exactly, Diego. And bro, you got to work on that. Diego, those of you who don't know, has been a frequent viewer. He's a former service member, police officer. And he's finally realizing more and more that the shame he feels is a part of that trauma that he's got to work on. He's got to work on that, Diego. And Diego has been very open and honest with how he's been dealing with it by medicating himself. Guys, if you're watching this, please share it. Remember, we've got to normalize conversations about mental illness. Diego, you got to work on Diego's relationship with Diego. You got to work on Diego's relationship with Diego. You've got to, because if you don't, bro, you're going to spend all those years. You're going to be my age in your 50s. I know you're in your 40s, but it's going to be ingrained even more, bro. It's time for Diego to say, it's okay that I have self-doubt. It's okay that I haven't achieved more of my potential, but it's time to work on that. I got to work on the trauma of being bullied by my parental figures, because what you're doing, bro, is you're self-bullying. You're bullying yourself the way you were treated as a kid. And us men, bro, I mean, we don't like to admit we're hurting. You know what guys tell guys? A lot of women don't even realize the kind of crap men tell each other. The kind of peer pressure, that masculinity nonsense that keeps things locked in. So Diego, you gotta keep working on it, bro. You gotta access that healthcare and find a provider you can talk some of this stuff out with, because it's difficult in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it gets easier. It's like riding a bike. Remember when we first learned to ride a bike? That crap wasn't easy, but guess what? Whoa, look, no hands. Gets easier and easier, bro. Don't give up. Trisha saying, oh no, my daughter tells me that she doesn't blame me. Beautiful, beautiful. And Trisha, my sister from another mister, you got to start listening to her, okay? You got to start listening to her. You're victimizing yourself by the actions of some perpetrator. So the perpetrator violated your daughter, and now you're violating yourself, saying, I should have protected her. I should have. You don't know that you should have. You don't know that you could have. But I understand as a parent. I hear you. My kid falls. Why didn't I watch him? I feel you. I do. Please share this if you're watching this, people. Okay. Diego's saying, hence, that's why I pushed myself to hard challenges and careers in life to prove myself, but always fell short in my head. I hear you, brother, because you're externalizing this. Remember, we talked about external locus of control versus internal locus of control. External locus of control is Diego needing the external things to feel good about himself. Always shaky ice, people. Internal locus of control is Diego saying to himself things like, yeah, man, I'm proud that I was a service member. I'm proud that I was a police officer. I'm proud of my accomplishments. That's Diego building up internal locus of control, bro. Don't self-bully, Diego. I know you learned that, my brother, but don't self-bully. You're bullying the victim. You're beating up the victim here, all right, man? You've got to start being aware. Oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Remember we talked about racism, right? There's no born racist. The racist who doesn't want to be a racist anymore, who starts working on where they learn to be a racist and brings in mindfulness to that. Oh, I'm doing it again. I'm hating this black guy or this white guy. And I don't even, you got to catch, I call it catching your conditioning. You got to catch that conditioning in the moment. And the more you do that, the less and less the conditioning affects you. But it ain't that easy. It's not that easy because Diego, you got to do some work on that crap that is affecting you. Okay. Kat's alter is saying, before I allow Kat out, she did testify against him today for violating the orders in place because he attempted to contact her using a third party. Yeah, I got that. We got that. Hey Kat, how are you? Congratulations on standing up to that to your abuser, Kat. Welcome back. Good job, Kat. Tell us how that felt to testify against your brother. Okay. Let's talk about that. Great to see you back. You're welcome, Trisha. No problem. Seriously, Trisha, you got to talk to Trisha tonight. You got to look in the mirror, Trisha, and say, sister, I'm sorry. It's time. It's time. It's time for me to stop hating myself over this. It's time. Trust me, Trisha, if your daughter really felt you could have done something to protect her, you'd be hearing about it, okay? So, but Trisha, you got to look into, where did Trisha learn to beat herself up like this? Where did Trisha learn to hold herself to such high standards? Okay? So great job, Kat. We're so proud of you. Let me scroll down here. Yeah, tired and I'm emotionally drained, I bet. But Kat, I hope you're giving yourself some credit. I hope you're saying to yourself tonight, great job. Great job. You did it. It was hard, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. I handled it. Great job. You should be, that's the self-talk for tonight, Kat. Great job. I'm proud of you. You did it. You're stronger than you. Remember, we talked about ego strength, Kat. Ego strength. Just like tonight, you're coming back to us because that ego, remember, you're the hub of the wheel. These altars are the spokes. You're the hub. You're the hub, Kat. That sounded like hubcap. Sorry, but you know what I mean. Hub. You're the hub, comma, Kat. So you got to give yourself lots of credit tonight, Kat. Okay. Diego saying, wow, self-bullying. I've never thought of it that way. Yeah. Well, you need to think about it that way, my brother. You're treating yourself the way you were treated as a kid. And that's what trauma does. Okay. Hey, Florida TMS Clinic. All right. Dr. Khalid is on. Looking forward to talking with you too, man. Really looking forward because TMS is really showing some great efficacy and we want to hear about what you do, how we want to destigmatize it. So great. Thanks for logging on. Get your questions ready, people. Dr. Khalid has taken time out of his busy day to come on tomorrow on Tuesday or Thursday. I'll post something about it. But yeah, Kat. Okay. Sam saying, I'm doing a happy dance for you, Kat. Go, Kat. You're awesome. What Sam just said to you, Kat, you need to say to yourself. You need to spend the rest of tonight soothing Kat. Because just like Diego is saying that he self-bullies, you're abusing yourself the way you were abused by your brother. You should be saying things like, I'm proud of myself. I did it. I friggin' did it. Okay? Kat saying, I got to see him over video conference face-to-face for the first time since I was 11, almost 12. Wow, sister, that's brave. When I told my mom what he did, I finally got to tell him what a piece of shit, excuse my French, he is, because he is. You know, Kat, you're doing awesome, sister. Some of you may not know, but Kat just got out of, she was had to go back in and get some treatment. She was working on the shame and guilt of that, and we talked about it online. And what's the shame of going to a hospital? Nothing. You got something associated with this pandemic. You're gonna go to a hospital. Good job, Kat. Please, Kat, spend the rest of tonight soothing Kat, telling her how proud she is, of how proud you are of yourself. Okay. And Diego, my brother from another mother, you got to work on that self-bullying, bro. You got a lot to be proud of, man. You got a lot to be proud of. Service member, cop, police officer, focus on some of that for tonight, Diego. Talk to yourself. Yeah, I am proud of that. You think I could have done the crap you did, dude? Come on, man. You probably snapped me like a toothpick. You should be proud of your strength, bro, too. But you didn't learn how to do that, Diego. I know you didn't. You didn't learn how to do that. You gotta now learn how to do that. But you gotta work on the crap, bro. That trauma that's causing you to drink so much, man. Okay? You don't want to be 55 and still struggling with this, bro. You gotta start laying in some roots, getting some healing going on. Okay? Okay, people. Well, thank you. Yes, Sam saying, Kat, you win. You did it. I'm also proud of you. Kat, whatever Sam is saying to you tonight, you have to say to yourself tonight. Okay? You got to say that to yourself. And Kat, if once you're feeling a little bit, Kat saying, I honestly never thought the day would come that I'd look at him in the face. And even though it was over video conference and confront him finally, I was honestly terrified of him before. Beautiful. Your ego strength is building, sister. That's what I'm talking about. You have the ability to heal this. It's not going to be quick. But remember, we've got to integrate those different personalities. It's not about killing them off. We've got to be stronger of that hub. And Kat, I'm not saying that, do this anytime soon, but if you ever want to come on and talk about what it's like to have DID, we're not going to do any treatment. We're not going to work on it, but we can talk, give the viewers an idea of what you go through. Somebody with dissociative identity disorder, let me know. Okay? But great job, Kat. Take some self-soothing to bed with you tonight. Talk to yourself in a way that supports that victim of the abuse. Do not victimize the victim. Okay? You're doing great. Feel that healing building in you, sweet sister. Almost said sweetheart. Sorry. Whoops. But, I care about people I talk to. It's sorry about that. But sister, work on that. Talk to yourself tonight. Call yourself sweetheart. Call yourself nice names. Soothe yourself tonight. Okay? Took 26 years, but I finally happened. Beautiful. You just gave me my goosebumps for the day, Kat. Thank you. All right, good people. So Diego's saying, yes, sir, listening to you tell me that it feels deep. Great. And that's my biggest fear of waking up to 60 and being worse. Well, bro, let's start tomorrow. Find a provider, brother. Work on it. Start mindfully drinking, Diego. Start cutting down the drinking. Work on those feelings of shame inside of you, brother. It's like an infection. Remember, if that cut on my hand hadn't healed. All right? Okay, people. Thank you for logging on. Please tell people about the live stream. If you know anybody that has deep-seated, it's called endogenous depression, where it's just ingrained in them and they're giving up. Log on. I think we're going to do it Tuesday night with Dr. Khalid from Florida TMS Clinic. He's going to come on and talk about treatment. He's going to talk about medication. He's going to talk about all kinds of things. Remember, people, ain't nobody paying us to be on here, okay? Ain't nobody paying us. We're here because we were trying to normalize conversations about mental illness, just like the conversations about physical illness are normalized in our culture. Adam from YouTube is saying, can you do a video about CBT techniques to reduce anxiety cycle and next streaming? Sure, man, I can work on that. Absolutely. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and anxiety. Absolutely. Definitely. I can talk about that. Thanks for that, Adam. So yes, and anybody has some ideas for shows or whatever, shoot me emails. You can always, this is my website. You can send me a message through here. So anyway, great live stream tonight. Thank you for everything. Yes, Dr. Khalid, if you type in, I don't have his last name here, but if you type in Florida TMS Clinic, you'll see who's coming on. But thank you everybody for logging on. Thank you for working on your mental health, your mental illness. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Like you see Michael Phelps on TV talking about it. Exactly. We all need to work on it, people, because we should be living in a completely different culture. We should have a different society. We should be more enlightened than we're having. And why? Because people are bleeding out all of their unworked on crap, and it's affecting people around us and it's affecting the world, and we need to work on it. Okay. Let's see. Kat saying, since you go live 2 times a week, maybe you can do one night focused on the topic, the other for addressing us. Yeah, I hear you. I was talking to somebody today about this. So what I don't know if you saw earlier, thanks, Debbie. I'm glad you appreciated the lessons. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first half about the topic, and then the second half to take questions and interact with people. It just, the feedback I'm getting is I'll get into a point and I'll delineate. So, but hey, this is live. This isn't taped. This isn't edited. This is live as we go. So keep the suggestions coming in. And Kat, okay, here's my suggestion for you tonight, sister. Soothe Kat. Give Kat some credit. Give Kat some atta girls. Okay, you should be very proud of yourself. You conquered something. You pushed through the fear. You faced it, and you realized, hey, it sucked, but I can deal with it. Okay, I can deal with it. Amity was out, but had some awareness of what I was going. Beautiful. And we're slowly moving to integration, Kat. We're slowly moving towards integration. All right, people, I will see you Tuesday night. We'll have Dr. Khalid on. We'll talk about TMS. We'll talk about medication. We'll see where we go. And please tell people about it. I'll post some things to advertise it and let people know about it. Thanks for logging on. Really appreciate the support. Just being there, because I'm doing this just to try to help people work on their mental health and mental illness. All right. See you Tuesday night. Have a great weekend. Take it easy.